So those are the views of South Africans in Mbombela as well as Cape Town. So we're asking you, how should the president deal with KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's claims of political interference in high-profile cases? We're really keen to hear your thoughts. Join our conversation by sending us your views on our WhatsApp line, which is 072 110 5584. That's for your text messages. To give us a call, use the number 010-594-6010. In fact, let's start with those views now. We are joined by Dan. Dan, are you in Cape Town? Thank you for calling and good evening to you. In Durban. Dan in Durban. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am. It's Dane. Sorry.
Oh, Dane. Thank you for calling, Dane. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts is I think the president should be Mkhwanazi. Mkhwanazi is doing such wonderful work in and around KZN. Crime is really taken a hit here, and we are so happy for the work he's done. Cash in transit is coming down. Cash in transit is coming down, as well as drugs. So I don't think Mkhwanazi just made a statement for the sake of making a statement. I think he's making a statement that he needs help, so the president has to back him.
Now, what does backing him mean? When you say the president has to back him, what would that mean, Dane?
I'm saying, when I say back him, I mean the president should do a thorough investigation and ask Mkhwanazi all the facts that Mkhwanazi has in these documents to come through and actually pay attention to what Mkhwanazi is saying. Because in South Africa, our leaders are failing to deliver. And yes, Mkhwanazi who is coming on a public platform to give us the information, to say, listen, this is what we have found. So the president needs to stand by him and look at it and not protect fellow MPs, which most of the time they are doing, if that makes sense. All
right, Dane, thank you so much for calling in, and we'll continue taking calls. But we are also joined by our panelists this evening. We're joined by criminologist Professor Nurmala Gopal. Good evening to you, Prof. Also joined by governance expert Mr. Nhlanhla. To the both of you, we really appreciate your time, and what an important discussion. I think that South Africans just simply haven't stopped talking about it since we had that media briefing early yesterday by the KZN Police Commissioner. I do want to start with you, Mr. Nhlanhla, and get your views just from a governance point of view. Certainly over the past day and a bit, one of the big debates that have been quite divisive around this issue has been the platforms that the provincial commissioner had to go and raise these very claims that he has done. Some saying that he should have raised these issues internally within the structures, taken them to the national police commissioner, for instance, instead of coming out to the media and to the public with claims this explosive. What do you make of that debate?
Thank you very much, Naledi. Good evening to you and to the viewers at home. Well, as you had mentioned, that this debate has become very divisive as a result of what you just mentioned now in regards to the channels that the commissioner should have used to ventilate these issues. However, there are channels, obviously. Like, I think the commissioner did allude to the fact that they did appear before the portfolio committee of the security cluster in parliament, and these issues were given a platform for them to be ventilated. However, there were certain discrepancies that the minister had chosen not to actually expose or to be honest about when he was given an opportunity to actually ventilate these issues. So I think that the problem here is that even the people who are supposed to be, through which these challenges are supposed to be channeled to, are the same people who are at the center of this problem that is trying to be exposed here. So I think that the main issue, if anything, is the fact that those through whom the challenge or the grievance is supposed to be channeled to are at the center of the problem. Now, I believe that the commissioner had no other option but to act in the manner that he did in this instance, because like I mentioned, that there are platforms such as the portfolio committee, which the commissioner did allude to the fact that the minister did actually appear before, but did not disclose some of the deep allegations that were disclosed and alluded to yesterday. So I believe that the main issue here is the fact that the person in question, or those that are supposed to be exposed, are at the center of this problem. Hence, the commissioner decided to approach it the way he did.
You know, you've got calls, of course, by the Police Portfolio Committee Chair, Ian Cameron, saying that they need to see an ad hoc inquiry or a commission. We'll get into that. But Dr. Gopal, I think just at face value as a criminologist, you listen to the massive allegations that the commissioner talked about, 120 or so cases that he says were looking into political killings and really stalled on the instruction of the police minister. I don't know what you make of that. The allegations at face value, do you believe what we heard from the commissioner?
So good evening, Naledi, and good evening to your viewers as well as Mr. Kaba. I absolutely believe what the commissioner has articulated. I don't believe that he would make those articulations without evidence. So in terms of my worldview, I believe that he knows what he's saying. He has evidence. He has proof for it. I think if we take that a little, a step further and ask ourselves, why would the minister have, or why would the commissioner have made those allegations? And I think, to me, it sounds like there was extreme frustration. And he made those, he probably found that this was one of the best ways in which his message would be heard. And I think he owes it to the South African citizens. He owes it to the democracy as well. I think one of the things that we tend to forget is that we are a democracy. And even in terms of the earlier question that you posed to Mr. Kaba, however we hear the information, as a democracy, we're entitled, it's our priority to hear that kind of information, because unless it is released in the public domain, it's very unlikely that it would be attended to or resolved in the manner that it should be. So I think very importantly that we heard the message, and of course, political killings is so highly ranked in South Africa. Given the historical past of South African political killings, etc., I think it was really unwise for that task team to be shut down or terminated in the manner that it was.
Yeah. Of course, as you've got these calls to be made of an inquiry or a commission looking into what things are looking like inside law enforcement and the involvement of organized crime. Prof. Gopal, I'm going to stay with you on this one. At some point, much a little bit further down the line, perhaps there'll be a discussion around, if there is an inquiry, the terms of reference, just how far back we go. And I suppose the real question that I want to ask you is your understanding of how deep the rot goes, where we do see in South Africa organized crime having a close relationship with law enforcement in South Africa, and examples perhaps from your learned experience that you have seen in the country.
So I think in terms of how far the rot goes, it's probably a rabbit hole. I think it's quite deep. And, oftentimes we blame it on the past, but, we say it's a previous dispensation and we've inherited a great amount of the, corruption, etc. But I think at some point we need to take stock of how are we contributing to this rabbit hole going even further. So that's my first response and my spontaneous response to the question. I think in terms of, organized crime, one of the, some of the information that we have, both researched and popular information as well, is that South Africa is seen to be a safe haven for criminals, for organized criminals. And I think that relationship is quite strongly entrenched between I'm not saying across the board, but in some facets of our criminal justice system, whether it is with SAPS, it is with the judiciary, etc. So it appears to be quite strongly entrenched at the moment, and that is why we find that organized crime finds this a very fertile ground in which to do its business.
We're going to continue to take calls on this one as well, 01059460010. And perhaps the question as we take the discussion further is the action that needs to come now, calls for a debate in the National Assembly or for an inquiry into the involvement of organized crime in law enforcement in South Africa, or the action that needs to come from the president. Let's hear from Nhlanhla in Somerset West. Nhlanhla, good evening to you. Thanks for calling.
Good evening. How are you?
Well, that line is a bit choppy, but let's see how far we go. Nhlanhla, go ahead.
Ma'am, I think that the minister should be suspended because there's a clear conflict of interest based on the allegations that are put through by the general. And there is clear evidence stated and has been provided to the media. And the system has been shown to be in cahoots with the syndicate. So I also do agree with the stances and the move that Mr. General Mkhwanazi did. The system is flawed, ma'am, in every sense. And you can't have criminals investigating criminals. The gravity of these allegations are enormous and need to be taken seriously. Hence, the president should be suspending the police minister because he is way too involved and has been shown to have lied in Parliament when he was asked if he knows a particular person, which he stated he does not know, where the record then shows that he does know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you so much for that, Nhlanhla. We appreciate it. You know, I do want to get into some of the suggestions that have been put forward by various role players. And one of the things that we've heard, Mr. Kaba, is the call for that we go into now the SAPS and our police service and really start to have a vetting of all senior officials. I wonder just how plausible and feasible that is. Vetting and lifestyle audits. Just how feasible is that?
Well, Naledi, I think firstly, what the relations by Commissioner Mkhwanazi, what they exposed is a general decay in the state of our public institutions or public sector in South Africa. I think our public sector generally is in a state of decay, and I think General Mkhwanazi's expose yesterday actually just showed us a glimpse of what is happening behind closed doors and the people that we call leaders and how they actually deal in some of these syndicates. Because this is not the first thing, by the way. It's not an unprecedented event that we are seeing. Now, I'll take you back to 2007, when the then National Commissioner, Jackie Silebi, was charged by the NPA and subsequently sentenced because of a similar case whereby he was accepting bribes from a drug lord. And we know, when I actually read that, I actually drew a parallel between the current situation and the then situation of Jackie Silebi, whereby there's a drug cartel, as Commissioner Mkhwanazi had mentioned, which is also involved in this instance. So generally, I think that if we still have the current people who are dealing with criminals and everything like that as the problem, I don't think we'll really get further, because the main problem here is that the people whom are supposed to be solving these problems are at the center of them. Hence, I alluded to the fact that the reason why Commissioner Mkhwanazi actually chose to approach things the way he did instead of going through the right channels is because those who are at the prerogative and the authorities are at the center of all these problems. So it does not really help to go to them, but to rather take a different approach that will actually counter whatever measures that they will take, which we saw yesterday. Because, as he also alluded to the fact that the main reason why he chose to do what he did is because of the fact that the minister and the deputy national commissioner, who is Shadrack Sibiya, were plotting to actually shut down the political killings task team, which is a task team, by the way, that was instituted in the wake of the political killings in KZN in 2018. We know that KZN is a very politically violent province, and to shut down a task team of this nature, which involves, by the way, the assassination of Cindy Somagaba, who was we saw one of the suspects actually being sentenced to 25 years in prison today, which is progress, actually. So what I'm realizing here is that every time the people that try to make progress, like General Mkhwanazi, they always try to be counted and shut down. So I think that there needs to be a vetting, by whilst we'll still have people that are unethical at the hierarchy or at the hierarchy of our leadership, then it does not really help to actually come up with all these suggestions, because we need to get rid of the problem first before we can actually bring such things into play.
Yeah, and the question is just how optimistic we are in being able to get to the bottom of the rot. And you mentioned Cindy Somagaba, just for the benefit of our viewer. We are expecting to speak to Andile Lungisa during the duration of the show as well, to get a reaction to that sentencing. But let's take more calls on the issue of the explosive briefing by the KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi yesterday, the steps that South Africans want to see moving forward. Jabulani is calling in Johannesburg. Jabulani, good evening.
Yes, how are you?
I'm well, sir. Thank you for calling. Talk to us.
I'm okay. You are speaking to Jabulani SBC in Joburg, New Canada.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, these issues are very concerning. this kind of corruption within the police fraternity is very, very devastating. Yes, like when you look at the police functions, like on a ground level, you can see the police incompetence. And again, when high police officials on high ranking are so implicated in corruption, that leaves us in destitute.
Yeah.
I think the president needs to take drastic steps and remove those people who are implicated.
Okay.
Like when you look at, again, the police work, like going to courts, judiciary and prosecutors, you can see there are many people who are being protected. Yeah, that leaves us like in a very, very bad situation and state as a country. That will chase away the investors because our security is being compromised. Yes, I think again the vetting process needs to change. You understand? People should not be put in position because of political affiliation.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yes, it must be because they qualify to be in that position, not just to change people in position if they don't even if they don't qualify.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for calling in, Jabulani. Jabulani, they're of course talking about just how much confidence South Africans have in police in their own communities. It makes me think back to what General Mkhwanazi said yesterday, and he was quoted as saying, millions of South Africans' lives are in jeopardy. At least I have a gun to protect myself. Julius is calling in Lydenburg. Julius, good evening.
Thank you very much. Just a quick one.
Sure.
I think we should be having people like General Mkhwanazi to expose issues like this, because we as South Africans are now scared to be walking around in our own country. A lot of people are being protected for wrongdoing. And it will only be fair if the president can not take time and before things fall apart. It will only be fair to us South Africans if each issue can be drastically addressed.
Yeah.
And then all those who are affected be removed. And this must only be the beginning of better things to be done, so that we can be sure when we see police in our country that we are protected. Because now, if you look around, you see police and you don't even, at times you don't even take them serious because of they are sort of captured. They don't have the power to make decisions.
So you're talking now about the confidence that South Africans have in the SAPS. Julius, thank you so much for calling in. A few WhatsApps have come in, but I'm going to look at three before we close off this discussion and move on to the next one. Let's see. Tamba from Kempton Park says, good evening, Naledi. I won't be surprised if the president decides to move Senzo Mchunu to a different portfolio, just like he did with the current Minister of Human Settlement. I wonder who the other members of parliament are part of this criminal syndicate. Okay? Vusi in Standerton says, evening, Naledi. I think what has been raised by the Commissioner openly to the public should be taken as a matter of urgency and necessity by the President moving forward. The Minister involved should be suspended to allow investigation to take place without any interference. Vusi in Standerton, thank you for that. Anonymous says, greetings. At this point, can we say General Mkhwanazi is a whistleblower? If so, I feel he deserves high-profile protection. And he's talked about how if he needs protection, where does that leave the many South Africans? We are going to just close off this discussion quickly. Professor Gopal, I think give us your final thoughts here. You're in the president's shoes. What is the action that you take urgently?
So, yeah, I think for me, the most urgent one would be to set up a system. And when I say a system, I'm thinking something really objective. A system to investigate the allegations, not to investigate Commissioner Mkhwanazi, but to investigate the allegations. I think that's going to be very important, and not to divert from the real issue. And of course, to have a listening to the South African voices, and very importantly, to make, perhaps to even, I would even go for a referendum, to be honest. And, put some very important questions to the South African public and find out what is it that we really need to do in this case, and take those views very seriously. I think it's absolutely important and critical at this point in time that the president acts with the seriousness that this issue deserves.
Okay. Mr. Xaba, your final thoughts? You're in the president's shoes. What's the thing you do with urgency?
Firstly, I think I'll have to agree with Dr. Gopal in that there should be a system that is set up to thoroughly investigate these allegations, because this is a threat to our state's security. And I've been having discussions with some colleagues that South Africa is on a road that is headed to a failed state, and there are growing symptoms of South Africa becoming a failed state. And this, which is a threat to our security, is one of those growing symptoms that I always allude to. But also, Naledi, we should take note of the fact that President Ramaphosa does not have a good track record in terms of dealing with people that are involved in wrongdoing within his party, the ANC, as well as within his cabinet and his executive. For instance, I'll take you back to Thembi Simelane, who was found in the wrong side in terms of the VBS scandal. There was Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, who was also found to have, who also had a scandal that was clouding her when she was still a municipal manager in one of the municipalities in Limpopo, but the president didn't really act and take the necessary steps in order to ensure that they are accountable. So even with this one, I think that President Ramaphosa really finds himself between a rock and a hard place, in that if he deals with Senzo Mchunu now, the others within the ANC and within his cabinet, by the way, will see him as inconsistent in that he did not deal with other corruption cases. But I think this one is a very important one in that it involves state security, which is a very important aspect within a country and within a country's stability. So I think that it needs to be treated with the necessary urgency, in that it involves our security as ordinary citizens of South Africa.
Yeah. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having the both of you, and thank you so much for being with us to share your views, to hear the views of other South Africans as well. Nhlanhla Xaba, of course, is a governance expert, and Professor Nurmala Gopal, criminologist with the University of KwaZulu-Natal. We've got more news on the other side of this short break. Do stay with us.